Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I show you how to grow begonias from seed. So let's go. I love begonias. I like them because they do well in the sun and they also do well in the shade. It depends on your climate. Here where I live, zone 5B in New Hampshire, our climate tends to be on the cooler side compared to a lot of people that live south of here. However, what I've noticed with begonias is typically I can plant them in the full sun and I can also plant them in shade, and they seem to thrive in either conditions, which makes it one of the plants that I love to have in my landscape. Did you know that there are many different types of begonias? Well, there are. And the two begonias that I'm going to focus on in this video are the fibrous rooted begonias as well as the tuberous begonias. The fibrous rooted begonias are also known as bedding or wax begonias. They don't create a tuber and they typically don't overwinter well, especially where I live, and they are usually considered an annual. They will overwinter indoors, but they would have to be treated as a houseplant. Tuberous begonias, as the name implies, create a tuber. Many times in the springtime, you can buy begonias that are in a box or a bag, and they might have a little round tuber in there. And that's where it gets its name, tuberous begonia, because it creates a tuber. The tubers tend to be flat or round in a brownish color. And I have some tuberous begonias that I'm overwintering here, and I'll show you those just so you can see what they look like. But before we look in this box, let's talk a little bit more about begonias. So each year you have the option. You can treat your begonias as annuals, discard them, and just start all over again the next year. But I really like to try to save my begonias however I can. So for the tuberous begonias, I like to save the tubers and I overwinter them in my garage where it does not freeze during the winter months. And when it comes to the fibrous or the wax begonias, I like to start those plants from seeds. And I made a video in the fall that showed you how to collect your own seeds from a wax begonia. It's a very simple process, and what you're looking for when you're collecting the seeds from a wax begonia plant is very similar to the same seed pod that you're looking for on a tuberous begonia plant. It almost looks like a little wing, and it's very distinct. You would know what it looks like once you see it. And each of those seed pods contain a ton of seeds. It's amazing. This is, in fact, my first year trying to grow tuberous begonias from seed. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But so far, the plants have sprouted. I have them here, so I will be showing you those. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how those plants turn out. I also have started over here a bunch of wax begonias from seed. In terms of a timeline, you typically want to start your tuberous begonias about 14 to 16 weeks before your last frost. It is definitely one of the first plants that I start from seed. And when it comes to the wax begonias, you can start those indoors about 12 weeks before your last frost. So let's go ahead and open this box and I'll show you what the tuber looks like for a tuberous begonia. I like to store them in peat moss, and there's no additional water in this box. They're not like a dahlia. Dahlias need a little bit of moisture in there, but when it comes to these specific type of tubers, tuberous begonias don't need any additional water. They just need to be in a dark, cool, dry location that does not freeze. And I've been checking on these tubers once a month just to make sure that there's no rot happening, and I'm always checking to make sure that the tubers still feel firm. And here's an example of a tuber from a tuberous begonia. Pretty big. Here's another example. And when I pre-sprout these indoors, I will definitely make a video showing you my process for pre-sprouting these tuberous begonias. So even if you didn't overwinter any, definitely be on the lookout for the tubers and get yourself some tuberous begonias and grow them on in your yard. And then I challenge you to overwinter them next winter. It's definitely worth it because it can get very expensive buying these year after year. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever overwintered tuberous begonias? And if so, how have you done with it? Were you successful? Please let me know in the comments below. So it's still too early for me to start these tuberous begonias and get them pre-sprouting. But I look forward to doing that with you in another video. Even though I recently made a video showing you the process for starting some begonia seeds, in this specific video, since it's only about begonias, I figured we might as well start some more seeds together. I like to use restaurant to-go containers. I clean them once I get them, and then I like to drill holes in the bottom for drainage. And also, it's a great way for me to bottom water these trays. I just would put this tray in a bigger pan, put water, and it would soak up the water from below. And inside, I already have some seed starting mix. Now, I used this tray to start some other seeds in the past, and I've already pricked out all of those seeds. And one thing I'm checking for is I'm just making sure that there's no moss or no rot or mildew or anything like that going on in here. And this mixture here is fine, which makes me feel comfortable for reusing it again. But if I was to notice anything like that, like any sort of mold or anything, I wouldn't use this. I would just throw this away and start with new seed starting mix. And when it comes to a seed starting mix, I like to make my own seed starting mix. And it's peat moss as well as vermiculite. Both of those help retain water. And that's been working out really well for me. You could buy your own seed starting mix, and you can also make your own. So for the seeds that we're going to start together today, it's a wax begonia. It's light pink, and it has a light green leaf. And I wasn't sure when I collected these seeds, I did not write down if it was a tall or a short variety of wax begonias. And that's all right. We're just going to go ahead and sow these. These seeds were collected on September 10th of this past year, 2023. So for the seed starting mix, it's already been pre-moistened, so we don't need to add any additional water. And I'll take you in for a closer look just to show you how I'm going to spread the seeds onto the seed starting mix. And if you look carefully, those are, I don't even know how many seeds. There are a ton of seeds in there. So we're not going to be sowing all of these. We're just going to sow some of them. So I've gone ahead and poured a bunch of seeds in my hand. You can see they're very small. They're like a reddish brown color. And I am very liberally just spreading the seeds on here. Now, often when you buy wax begonia or tuberous begonia seeds, they're going to come pelleted. And they're very expensive, actually. You're not going to get many for the price that you're paying. However, I have to admit, wax begonias and tuberous begonias grown from seed are not the easiest. So I don't recommend doing it this way if you're new to gardening. I would suggest this is probably if you're more of an advanced gardener, because I want you to have a good level of success. But if you buy the pelleted seeds, you probably would have more success. But it is totally possible to do it this way, which is why I'm making these videos. And I realize there are definitely going to be areas where this plant is there's going to be a ton of plants growing in one section and then not many in another section. And that's all right, because once they germinate, we're going to be pulling them out of this tray and potting them up anyway. So at this point, I know that we can't actually see the seeds very easily, but I'm just going to very lightly press down. I want to make sure that there's good contact between the seed and the soil. We're going to go ahead and cover this up. And I'm just reusing the plastic wrap that was on here for a previous plant that was sown in this container. And I'm going to go ahead and just label what plant is in here. So it's wax begonia, light pink, light green leaf, and today's date. I have heat mats that are plugged in, and they're set to about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go ahead and put this tray of wax begonia seeds on the heat mat. And it's always good when you're starting wax begonias or tuberous begonias from seed to put them on a heat mat. Now, not all plants require a heat mat for germination, but it's definitely recommended when you're starting begonias from seed. So it's going to take at least 2 to 3 weeks before those begonia seeds even germinate. And from what I've learned from my own experience, I like to wait before I move them out of those trays and pot them up. I like to wait until there's at least a couple of set of leaves on there. It just makes it a lot easier to move the plants because the plants are super teeny tiny. So you might as well just let them put on some growth. And the biggest thing is you just want to make sure you're checking. If they need water, definitely bottom water them. You don't want them to dry out. The next thing I want to show you are some begonias that we started together in a previous video. And in fact, one of the trays needs water. So I'm going to show you my process for bottom watering these begonia seedlings. This is a pan that I just got when I had a toaster oven. It came with it. And if you look at the dimensions, it's about 7 inches and it's about 9.5 inches this way. So it's a very small pan. And it works out really well for me for bottom watering my seedlings. So let's go ahead and add some water. And in the water, I have the smallest amount of Miracle Grow, like literally just a pinch. We're going to go ahead and put our tray in there. The tray is not full. It's partially full with seedlings in it. And I don't need to leave it in there that long. I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes my process for watering these. However, they're already pretty watered. They don't need any additional water. I just wanted to show you what my process is. So I would normally just put this little tray in here. And once I see that all the cells are a dark brown color, I would just remove this. And if you look carefully, these are all tuberous begonias, and they're a yellow color. They look great. And here's a tray of wax begonias that have a white blossom, and I think they're looking great as well. Here's the tray that's been under the grow lights of the wax begonias that we initially sowed together the end of December. And it takes a long time for me to actually individually prick these out and put them into a tray like this one here. And so I figured we could do a couple together. And then when I'm having my coffee in the morning, I'll just continue this project. And I don't really stress out about it. If I can do 20 or 30 a day, I'm happy with that. But I figured I might as well show you what I'm doing. So you can see that some of them are larger than others. And it makes sense for me to prick out the larger ones, especially if they're clustered near each other. I like to use a toothpick. I find that it's a lot easier. And all I want to do is just get under the plant the best that I can. And you can see that there's a small root system on there. And then what I like to do is just make a hole, place the begonia in there. And by the way, I found my red pen. And I'm using just one end of the pen to push down the soil. It's definitely a tedious process, but for me, it's worth it because I have so much sun, I have a lot more shade, and I want to have a lot of begonias in my yard. If I was to only buy a 6-pack, then probably it's better to just buy a 6-pack. But I want different colors of begonia. I want different colors of leaves for begonia. I want them all over my yard. So for me, it makes sense to grow them from seed. And sometimes when you pull it out, it attaches to the toothpick. And it looks like there's a few plants there. Because the plants can be very small, I like to wear my reading glasses so I can see what I'm doing here. And because each of these cells are really small, there are going to be losses. It just happens that, some of the cells might dry out. I do my best to keep these watered, and if I notice that I lost a plant somewhere along the way, I just replace it again because I have so many. And even though overwintering wax begonias is an option, I just want so many wax begonias. It wouldn't make sense for me to overwinter that many plants. If you collected the seeds of wax begonia during the fall, you definitely want to get those started soon. They take a long time from the time that you plant the seeds until they bloom. So if you have the seeds, definitely give it a try. You want to start those soon. And I can see like this one here is pretty tiny and it might not survive, but for now I'm going to plant it. I'll put a link to this type of tray down in the description. It's just something that I bought on Amazon and it was too big. It was like very big. I didn't need a huge tray. Plus it's harder for me to water it and fill it. So I had my husband cut up the tray into small sections. And this has been working out really well for me. I just feel like I have a lot more control for watering the seedlings. And because they now have a couple of sets of leaves, I feel comfortable giving them some fertilizer now. But you don't want to over fertilize. You literally want to just give the tiniest little pinch of fertilizer at this stage. And I'm excited to show you the progress on these plants. I feel like specifically for begonias started from seed, there's just not a lot of information out there. And that's why I love sharing this type of information, because I've had success with this. But it's not the same as growing something like a sunflower or a marigold. That's why I mentioned if you're a new gardener, it could be a challenge. So just keep that in mind. But don't give up. I say that with a lot of things. You don't want to give up. You want to keep trying. And I think after this seedling, that's all we'll do together, because you can see it would take forever to fill up this whole tray. Don't they look so cute? They are the tiniest little things. I mean, look at how big that is next to my finger. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really looking forward to showing you the progress and giving you updates on these begonia plants. I have a lot of different ones that I started recently that are under my grow lights. And this is the best time of the year to be doing this. I want to start doing this well before I get into the really heavy seed starting season with all the other flowers that I want to start, as well as vegetable plants. If you have any questions at all, please drop them below. I hope you're able to do something gardening related. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.